All right, guys, we're here today with Brad Faxon, and he's going to talk about his transition from being a player to now a coach on the PGA Tour. All right, guys, we're at Old Marsh Golf Club in beautiful Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Mr. Brad Faxon, how are you, sir?
Good, Josh. How you doing?
Thank you.
Good to be here.
I think we shook 4 times now. So,
I know.
But, you know, I thought it'd be an interesting conversation to talk about your transition of obviously being one of the best putters in the world, and then, you know, getting sought out from some of the best players in the world, and your strategy around coaching those players.
Well, it's a long story about, you know, when I was playing. I think like most young players, they want to try and play with the best players in the world, right? They would, as soon as you got out on tour, you wanted to play with Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson. In my case, it was play with Jack Nicklaus or Tom Watson or Seve Ballesteros, Greg Norman, asking questions or watching. And I spent more time with more instructors probably than any tour player alive, you know, paid for more lessons than because I was curious, I was inquisitive, I liked it. I liked talking about the swing, technique, thoughts, and how to play the game. And even before I started helping other players or coaching other players, I think I was good at explaining to people if they were struggling with a part of their game. And being down here in Palm Beach Gardens, we're close to Jupiter, where it seems like every tour player in the world lives around here. And a few of the top players sought me out, Gary Woodland, Justin Thomas, who I don't work with those guys anymore, but I've spent some time with them. And then McIlroy called me almost 3 years ago, and we sat down and really had a cup of coffee. We had a conversation. And I think what I can help a player with is less about X and O's. It's more about strategy and preparation and mindset than it is the most technical parts about it's the stroke. And if I can get a player in a better mindset, almost invariably their technique improves.
Got it. So obviously, you know, you're working with some of the most highly accomplished players in the world. They've known how to do it from probably a very young age. When things get off with them, what's typically your first thing that you go to help them get back on track?
It's so individualistic. I mean, some players struggle short putts, some people struggle with medium length putts. You know, they always want to make that 10 to 20 foot birdie putt range. They want more of those. You know, they look at statistics all the time now. The year Jason Day and Jordan Spieth were incredible between 20 and 30 feet. Everybody thinks they should be able to make 25% of those putts. I'm like, wait a minute. Some of this is a little bit more realistic look at the world, and then sometimes it's an unrealistic look at the world. Like, you need to start thinking a lot better than where you are. Right. So statistics can be a real benefit, and they can be a real hindrance too. And then it's getting them to do what we're trying to train on the putting greens out on the course. And like, you know, Darren May, who's an instructor over at the Grove here, where Michael Jordan's new course, he said, look, there's an 800-pound gorilla on that first tee, and sometimes it's on the tee, sometimes it's on the fairway, sometimes it's around the green, sometimes it's on the green. And trying to figure that out for a player. I talk to the players' caddies a lot. You know, what are they seeing out there? What do they see differently in their birdie putts versus their par putts? You know, what's the mindset like that? And just because I was a good putter doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily be a good instructor. I mean, if Jack and Tiger were the 2 best players in the world, that should mean they're the best instructors in the world. It doesn't always work out that way. And it seems like a lot of the great instructors, they all started to play golf in order to play great, but they've also learned ways to communicate. And if you said Butch Harmon's the best instructor that's ever lived, I think he's been really good at being able to take the mechanics of the player's swings and fiddle with them the least so that the player can go out and play confidently.
Would you say that that's kind of your approach to putting?
Without a doubt. I've had a lot of conversations with Butch about a lot of these things. I played with Craig Harmon last week, and I like the way they don't take themselves too seriously either.
Yeah.
You know, that's important.
And so when you're trying to get the best out of these guys, take me into that process. What does that look like?
You know, a lot of it is, you know, before we start having serious conversations, if I can get a picture of their stroke from 10 or 15 feet, you know, and I like to take some video from down the line and Faxon and just look at their whole routine. I make them hit a putt like they were in a tournament, and then have conversations. Then it's almost couch time first. where are you with this? Obviously, if there's PGA Tour player, I can look at their statistics and see what the reality of it is out there. But they can also help me a lot by telling me what they're going through, how they're practicing. What are they doing before they go out to play in a tournament? I mean, are you bringing all kinds of devices out onto the practice green, or are you just going out there and warming up for 10 minutes? Because I feel like if you're going to putt your best, you don't need to spend a lot of time out there. Within a few minutes, you should have the feel of the greens and your speed down pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So you're looking outside of the video and the 10 to 15 footer to really get a full perspective of what's going on at the course, outside of the course, how they're practicing, how they're preparing, to really use that info to plan your attack of how you want to help them get better.
And without working on mechanics, I've seen that their technique change from the first putts I take before we really have a conversation to going and spending 15, 20, 30 minutes talking about approach, really.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the light bulb goes off a little bit.
Do you ever work on mechanics?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, of course. I don't think people are going to see me if I don't ever do it.
And what would be an example of that? Like, what would be kind of how you would go about that, if you could give an example?
Boy, it depends on each player, what mechanics in it. A lot of it could be with whether they like to think about backward strokes or forward thoughts, feels. One hand versus the other. I always look at everything from kind of like the ground up. What are what's their feet looking? How do they align up? Eye dominance. What does the blade look like it's doing? Where is it going? Is it staying on a plane? Is it? I watch all that stuff and see if there's anything unusual. But at the same time, a lot of great putters had unusual looking things. If somebody went to Ben Crenshaw and said, oh, by the way, your hands are way forward and your left shoulder's really high and your head's cocked up, like mine is too, it's like you would have never heard of those players. Right. So you got to be really careful when you do this and what works for them and what their feels are, not what some false thing that I believe, right? That's not how I'm going to teach.
And I think that's really important because I think as coaches, we all develop biases along the way. And typically
preferences, right?
Yeah, their preferences typically based around things that person had an issue with. And I think I love that, just being open-minded to the fact that you're not letting yourself fall victim to that. Guys, really awesome video. Obviously, world-class putter, world-class putting coach. Brad, I wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Truthfully,
I hope this improves your putting.
It does. It does.
Okay, good.